Staying with Manchester United, though we're traveling a little bit back in time, ex-Manchester United manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has said that signing Cristiano Ronaldo from Juventus as manager felt right, but was wrong, end quote, adding that the ego of some of his players led to his sacking. Solskjaer was United manager from 19th of December 2018 to 21st of November 2021 after being let go by the club. Ronaldo joined the club for a second time at the age of 35 in the 2021 summer. Speaking to The Athletic, Solskjaer said, quote, "It was a decision that was very difficult to turn down and I felt we had to take it, but it turned out wrong," end quote. United lost 5-0 to Liverpool at Old Trafford in late October, and despite winning away 3-0 at Tottenham the following week, losses to Manchester City and Watford sealed Solskjaer's fate. Solskjaer further stated that some of his players had inflated views of themselves, revealing that he was disappointed when a couple players turned down the chance to be captain, while others refused to play or train because they wanted to force their way out. A lot of toxicity, it seems, in that period at Manchester United. Whether some of that still exists, we'll probably be dissecting post the Erik ten Hag era. But I will say this, we keep coming back to this Ronaldo story at Manchester United, and we probably will keep dissecting the time he spent there in his second stint. What do you make of this revelation? It was Cristiano Ronaldo, because what I took from that story is that while he didn't explicitly mention that Cristiano Ronaldo's ego was the problem, he effectively did insinuate that Cristiano Ronaldo's presence in the club made it so that others took themselves to be better than they were and refused to train because they wanted to leave the squad. And I remember recently, I think it was Ralph Rangnick who came out and said that Cristiano Ronaldo could not accept that his standards were so far ahead of every other player, and the players there couldn't accept Ronaldo's standards because they couldn't meet up with it. All of that, what do you make of it?
Well, first of all, it's just another regular day at Manchester United at this time because they are all about the negative news, to be honest. I won't be surprised if I hear another story about Mourinho's time there or Van Gaal's time there or Moyes' time.
Oh, that is still coming. That is still coming.
Exactly. So post Alex Ferguson, Man U has just been a circus, let's be honest. And I'm saying this even as a Man U fan. So, but the reality of the matter is this, right? The Ronaldo move, to be honest, seemed like a fairy tale return. And it was like, okay, this would be the push that United needed to maybe challenge City for the title at the time, or Liverpool, whatever the case was. But Ronaldo, obviously, in his own right, is one of the greatest football players of all time. Obviously, he will have a massive ego. Obviously, he will want to have more of a voice, more of an influence. I mean, we saw recently he visited, Tehran, and of course, you saw how everybody was in Iran with Al Nassr for the, AFC Champions League, and the entire city was just in a chaotic frenzy to see him. So that tells you the star power that he has. Now, you come to the dressing room influence. We all know that at the time, United also had some issues. This was brought in to steady the ship after the disaster that was Jose Mourinho. And this was due to the issues he had with some players, a.k.a. Paul Pogba. And we all know how that turned out. And Paul Pogba was still a very big part of this Ole's side. He was still there when Ronaldo came back. So you have massive egos, you have players who are prima donnas, and everybody now coming out with statements. Ronaldo made that interview with Piers Morgan that ended his contract. I mean, we have seen most recently Jadon Sancho. This was also the era whereby Mason Greenwood also was removed from United. So it's just a big mess. Like you said, Ralph Rangnick mentioned something that people seem to forget. Man U doesn't need, a little treatment. He said they need open heart surgery. So I feel the United's issue runs very deep. And no matter the manager you bring in, we've had top-level managers. Jose Mourinho is a legend of the game. Louis van Gaal, a legend of the game. These men all came into United and couldn't do anything. That tells you the decay and rot in that system. So until they flush out whatever issues they are there internally, it will not reflect on the pitch of play, because you just have a bunch of guys who are just not going to be coordinated. So all this
Well,
story, Ronaldo's move to United, I felt was a disaster. Second move, that is, because we now saw how decayed the system was in the dressing room. Like you mentioned,
I think his presence effectively brought a magnifying glass upon just how bad it was. Even before he went out and did that interview. And I think that is what people could not accept about that. They could not accept that Cristiano Ronaldo, granted, he has his ego, and justifiably so, in my opinion, when you've reached that level, when you've accomplished so much, you are the kind of player that is expected, because if he didn't do it, people would say, why didn't you do it? He's the kind of player that should walk into a locker room and drag everybody else's standards on par with him. He's the kind of player, whether he's wearing the armband or not, his example, his experience, and his vocal nature should be enough to bring everybody to say, you know what, we're going to challenge for titles. We're going to push ourselves better than we've ever done.
This counter to that, right? As good and as great as Ronaldo has been and has become or is, the question is, what about the leadership quality of the said manager at the time? Ole, they called him the babyface assassin when he was at United in his playing days. But to be honest, I felt it was a kind of individual that spoiled the players, because we saw United players believing they were way more than they actually were. When you play football and you don't even work hard, you don't even run for the badge, you gave lackluster performances, and there was no threat for discipline. We saw how lax they were, and it even shows with the last signing that he made in terms of Jadon Sancho.
Yeah.
I mean, the manager called him out a few weeks ago saying that he's not up to standard in his training routine or regimens, and the player calls out the man. I mean, we talk about great managers in the past, the likes of Sir Alex Ferguson, Arsene Wenger, and on the likes, Arrigo Sacchi. You can't say things about this kind of managers. They will just shut you off. I mean, if a player like Roy Keane says something against Alex Ferguson, and that's his last time playing for United, tells you how strong Man U had in the strength they had in their dressing room in terms of their coaches at the time, which was only one. So I think it also speaks volume of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's management skills and ability that he couldn't control those egos. I mean, in that interview, he went on to say players turned down the chance to be captain.
Yeah,
you can't. Sir Alex Ferguson tells you, yeah, the captain of Man United, say, no, I'm not going to be. Are you kidding me? So
you don't get asked, you get thrust into that position. I do want to say finally, because the last couple of games watching Manchester United, beyond the losses, beyond the bad performances, I asked myself, when you have Bruno Fernandes, when you have Marcus Rashford as your best players in the squad, is this a team that arguably should even be put in the same bracket as Liverpool, Manchester United, in terms of competing for the title? I don't think so.
No.
I even now, when I think about the fact that Bruno Fernandes is the coach's choice for the armband, it tells you there isn't a lot of options. And as good as Rashford is, he's not as good as the British media hype him to be.
Agreed.
He is not the kind of player that I feel could go to Real Madrid, could go to Barcelona and survive a season. I feel a season after that, he would be exposed as just not being good enough. Because sometimes we see players go to those clubs and we're like, these players are good. They've earned their opportunity to go to these big clubs, the top European clubs, and yet a season there. Look at Coutinho for Barcelona. He never lived up to everything that they expected he would. And before he left, he was considered one of the very best in the Premier League. And when you consider that Rashford is British, he's English, I think so much more than any other nationality playing in the Premier League would have been hyped. He is overhyped. And Bruno Fernandes, he came to Manchester United at a time when they needed a spark. Until now, I still don't see him as the kind of, because I'm a Ronaldo fan, I go with him wherever he goes, and I feel that his presence in the squad actually created problems for the way Manchester United wanted to play, tried to play with Cristiano Ronaldo. I feel like a lot of instances he gets opportunities and his decision making is not up to par with someone who's occupying the number 10 position. I would have gone for James Maddison
So here's my point, right? Here's the thing, right? At the time, Maddison was still at Leicester City, and I don't think they were going to sell him off. And of course, Maddison was still very much a young player before when Bruno Fernandes came to United. But my point is this, right? This is all, for me, I feel it's actually super old news because the issue is still affecting United till this very day. And that is still having a playing style and identity. We see Liverpool lose games last season, and we all could agree that, okay, their midfield is weak. Once they sort that out, they are back to winning ways. And that's what happened. There's an identity, Gegenpress from Jurgen Klopp. We see Man City play. Before they even signed Haaland, they won the Premier League title without a recognized number 9. Aguero was injured for most of his last season, so he wasn't really there. They won the Premier League. Man City signed Haaland, and we've seen how they just smashed almost every record known to man. So with their identity and playing style. The same with United. Now, the issue we have with Man United, like I said before now you had Sir Alex Ferguson, and let's even be honest with ourselves. Forget the team of the Ronaldo era of Ronaldo, Tevez, and Rooney. Let's talk about the '99 team that had, the likes of Solkjaer, Scholes, Giggs, and the rest of them. That team, let's be honest, if you are being very honest, they didn't play the most beautiful football. In fact, that era, it was Arsenal that had a better playing style. Yeah. But what that team had was just pure heart and playing for the badge. And then, of course, with that, coupled with wonderful technique and fantastic finishing from players like, Dwight Schultz and Andy Cole, and wonderful balls from David Beckham back in the day, you had that kind of drive to win titles. But this team misses that. Like we said yesterday, or we even give an example to Nana. Peter Schmeichel for United back then made errors in goal that led to Man U conceding goals, but they always come back to win. So even when we see Man City play football, if they concede a goal against, like they did last week against West Ham, I don't think anybody was scared and nervous. We're like, they'll come back and win. And they did. In the Champions League against Red Star Belgrade, they conceded a goal. They came back to win. United concedes a goal now and everybody's heads goes down. That tells you that the team is not really about the abilities of the players. These are top-level internationals. You see Maguire playing well for England, for crying out loud. He's not a bad defender. We see Casemiro, the captain of the Brazilian national team, play well. We saw Bruno Fernandes for Portugal during the Euro qualifiers, scoring goals. McTominay for Scotland, scoring goals. Rasmus Højlund, joint top scorer. These are top-level international players. But when they come to United, to that bubble, it's just not clicking. So we might talk about tactics, style of play, this, that. There is something there in Man U, a big elephant in that room, very small room that nobody wants to address, and it keeps on growing and growing. And until something drastic happens, United will go up one season and go down again. Go up one season and go down again.